October 4, 2021. The morning air carried the faint scent of autumn as Vanessa Cole unlocked the door to Vanessa's, her small private salon nestled between a coffee shop and a boutique clothing store on Main Street in Lexington, South Carolina. At 33, Vanessa had built a loyal clientele who appreciated both her skillful hands and her ability to keep secrets shared in the intimacy of her chair. She flipped the sign to "Open" at precisely 9:15 a.m., just as she had done every weekday for the past 5 years. Sunlight streamed through the large front window, casting warm rectangles across the polished hardwood floor. She hummed softly as she prepared for the day ahead, arranging her tools on the counter with meticulous precision. Her collection of professional shears, each one an investment she proudly maintained, gleamed under the soft lighting. Vanessa checked her phone, scrolling through the day's appointments. Her first client, Mara Evans, was due at 10 a.m. Mara had been coming to Vanessa for almost 2 years now, ever since moving to town after what she described as a messy divorce. Vanessa frowned slightly as she remembered their last conversation. "I feel like I should report it," she had whispered to her friend Diane the previous evening over the phone, glancing nervously at the motion-activated camera she'd recently installed behind her product shelf. 2 incidents of missing expensive hair products had prompted the security measure, but she never expected it would capture anything beyond petty theft. "After tomorrow's appointment, I'm going to the police." "Are you sure?" Diane had asked. "If what you found out is true, I have to. It's the right thing to do." Now, as Vanessa arranged her styling products, she wondered if she was making the right call. The salon door chimed at exactly 10 a.m., interrupting her thoughts. "Morning, Vanessa," Mara said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Tall and slender with shoulder-length blonde hair, Mara Evans carried herself with the practiced poise of someone accustomed to being watched. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" "Sure is," Vanessa replied, gesturing toward the styling chair. "The usual trim and highlights?" Mara nodded, shrugging off her light jacket to reveal a cream-colored blouse. "I have that job interview on Wednesday. Need to look my best." As Vanessa draped the protective cape around Mara's shoulders, she noticed her client's hands trembling slightly. "Everything okay?" "Just nervous about the interview," Mara said quickly. "You know how it is." Vanessa nodded, though she didn't quite believe her. As she worked, their conversation flowed casually: local gossip, the new restaurant that had opened downtown, a movie Mara had recently watched. Nothing to suggest the tension that seemed to hang in the air between them. By noon, Vanessa had finished with Mara's highlights and was preparing to rinse out the color. "Let's move you to the shampoo chair," she said, guiding Mara across the salon to the reclining chair positioned in front of a deep basin. As warm water cascaded through Mara's hair, Vanessa felt her client's shoulders stiffen. "Something wrong?" "I saw you last night," Mara said abruptly, her voice barely audible over the running water. "At the diner. With Michael." Vanessa's hands paused momentarily. Michael was Mara's ex-husband. "He's a client, Mara. Has been for years." "Don't lie to me," Mara's voice hardened. "You were laughing. Holding hands." "It wasn't what you think," Vanessa said carefully, resuming her task of rinsing out the color. "Michael needed advice about something personal." "Like what?" Vanessa hesitated. Client confidentiality was something she took seriously. But the truth was, Michael had been asking about a voicemail, a disturbing message he'd received from his former employer in Charleston, where Mara had worked as a receptionist at a hair salon before moving to Lexington. A salon whose owner had mysteriously disappeared 2 years ago. "Just personal stuff," Vanessa said evasively. "Let me get you toweled off, and we can finish your cut." Back at the styling station, Vanessa noticed Mara checking her phone repeatedly as she snipped away at her ends. The salon had grown quiet, with only the soft snick of scissors and the distant hum of traffic outside. "You know," Mara said suddenly, "it's funny how people think they can keep secrets in a small town." Vanessa met her eyes in the mirror. "What do you mean?" "I mean everyone talks eventually. Don't they, Vanessa? Something in Mara's tone made Vanessa's stomach tighten. She set down her scissors and reached for the blow dryer, buying time as she considered her response. I suppose they do, she said finally. But sometimes what people think they know isn't the whole story. Or sometimes it's exactly what they think, Mara countered, her gaze unwavering in the reflection. By 12:30 p.m., Vanessa had finished styling Mara's hair. There you go, she said, forcing brightness into her voice. All set for that interview. Instead of standing up, Mara remained seated, her fingers drumming on the armrests. I need to use your restroom before I go. Of course, Vanessa nodded toward the back of the salon. You know where it is. While Mara was in the restroom, Vanessa quickly sent a text to Diane, Mara acting strange. Call me in 10 minutes if you don't hear from me. When Mara returned, her demeanor had changed completely. Her earlier tension had hardened into something cold and determined. She locked the front door of the salon and drew the blinds closed. What are you doing? Vanessa asked, alarm rising in her chest. We need to talk privately, Mara said, her voice unnervingly calm. About Charleston. About what happened to Elaine Dorset. Vanessa's heart began to pound. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Mara moved closer. You've been asking questions. Talking to Michael. Digging into things that don't concern you. Mara, whatever you think is happening. I know exactly what's happening, Mara cut her off. You found the voicemail. The one Elaine left for Michael before she disappeared. The one where she said she was afraid of me. Vanessa took an instinctive step backward. Look, this doesn't have to. She was going to ruin everything, Mara continued as if Vanessa hadn't spoken. Just like you're trying to do now. I'm not trying to ruin anything, Vanessa said, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. But I do think the police should know what happened to Elaine. Mara's laugh was hollow. And what exactly do you think happened? I think you were more than Elaine's receptionist. I think you were having an affair with her husband. And when she found out and threatened to expose you, something happened to her. Something you were involved in. You have no proof of that. The voicemail is proof. And there's more. Bank records showing transfers from her account to yours the day after she disappeared. A witness who saw you leaving her salon at midnight the night before she went missing, when you claimed you were out of town. Mara's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. And you were planning to tell the police all this? After our appointment today? Vanessa's smartwatch vibrated with an incoming call, Diane, right on schedule. She glanced down at her wrist, and in that moment of distraction, Mara lunged forward. I need to wash your hair, Mara said, suddenly grabbing Vanessa by the shoulders and forcing her toward the shampoo chair. What are you doing? Stop. Vanessa struggled, but Mara was surprisingly strong. You just don't understand, Mara hissed, shoving Vanessa into the chair. I had to start over. Do you have any idea what it took for me to rebuild my life after Charleston? A new name, new history, everything. Mara, please, we can talk about this. No more talking, Mara said, reaching for something on the nearby counter. No more investigations. No more threats. Vanessa caught sight of her own professional shears in Mara's hand, the expensive Japanese steel ones she'd splurged on last Christmas. She tried to rise from the chair, but Mara pushed her back down. At 12:48 p.m., Vanessa's smartwatch registered a sudden spike in her heart rate as she realized what was about to happen. She opened her mouth to scream, but the salon was empty, the blinds drawn, the door locked. At 12:50 p.m., her watch recorded her heart's final beats. At 12:55 p.m., after carefully wiping down the shears and placing them beside Vanessa's limp hand, Mara Evans stood before the mirror, her own reflection startling her with its calmness. She hadn't expected to feel so empty. No triumph. No relief. Just a hollow acknowledgement of what she'd done. She knew, she whispered to her reflection, hands trembling as the reality of her actions began to settle in. She knew everything. For a moment, she stood frozen, staring at her own face as if seeing a stranger. Then, with mechanical precision, she reached for her phone and dialed 911, summoning a practiced tremor into her voice. "Please help. My hairstylist, I think she's been attacked. There's blood everywhere. I just stepped outside to take a call, and when I came back." Detective Marcus Rivera arrived at Vanessa's salon at 1:20 p.m., 15 minutes after the first patrol officers secured the scene. At 45, Rivera had seen his share of violent deaths in his 20 years with the Lexington Police Department, but something about this one, the intimacy of it, perhaps, made his stomach clench as he ducked under the crime scene tape. The victim was slumped forward in the shampoo chair, blood pooled around her on the tiled floor. A pair of professional haircutting shears lay nearby, their blades darkened with dried blood. The paramedics were already confirming what was obvious: Vanessa Cole was dead, a deep puncture wound to her neck having severed her carotid artery. "What do we know?" Rivera asked Officer Jennings, who had been first on the scene. "Victim is Vanessa Cole, 33, owner of the salon." The 911 call came in at 12:58 p.m. from Amara Evans, who claims she was a client. Jennings gestured toward a blonde woman sitting in a patrol car outside, a shock blanket wrapped around her shoulders. "Says she stepped outside to take a phone call and came back to find Cole already bleeding out. Door was locked from the inside when she returned. She had to use her own key that Cole had given her as a regular client." "Any signs of forced entry?" "None. Security system shows the door was last opened at 10 a.m. when Evans arrived, then not again until after the 911 call when officers had to break in." Rivera nodded slowly, his gaze traveling around the salon. It was small but tastefully decorated, with 3 styling stations, though Vanessa apparently worked alone. A shelf of high-end hair products stood against one wall. Nothing seemed disturbed or out of place, except for the violence that had erupted at the shampoo station. "Where's the ME?" he asked. "On her way," Jennings replied. "Should be here any minute." Rivera made his way carefully around the scene, noting details: a half-empty coffee cup on the counter, still warm, a phone charging next to the register, a jacket hanging on a hook that presumably belonged to the victim. The bell above the door chimed as Dr. Leila Santos, the medical examiner, entered. She nodded to Rivera before approaching the body. "Initial impressions?" Rivera asked after giving her a few minutes to examine Vanessa. "Single wound to the neck, severed the carotid. Death would have been quick, minutes at most. Based on body temp and lividity, I'd put time of death between 12:45 and 1 p.m. She pointed to the shears. "These appear to be the murder weapon. Professional grade, expensive. They'd be sharp enough to penetrate with relatively little force if the angle was right. The client claims she found her like this after stepping out for a call." Santos raised an eyebrow. "The blood is fresh, detective. If she stepped out, it wasn't for long." While the crime scene technicians processed the salon, Rivera went outside to interview Mara Evans. She was still sitting in the patrol car, her gaze fixed on some distant point. "Ms. Evans," he said as he slid into the seat beside her. "I'm Detective Rivera. I need to ask you some questions about what happened today." She turned to him, her eyes red-rimmed but dry. "Of course. Anything to help." "I still can't believe." "Take me through your day," he prompted. "From when you arrived at the salon." "I got here at 10 o'clock for my appointment. Vanessa did my highlights and cut, like usual. Everything was normal. We chatted about movies, local gossip, nothing unusual. And then? She finished around 12:45. I was about to pay when I got a call from my potential employer about an interview. I stepped outside to take it because reception is better on the street, and Vanessa was cleaning up anyway." Her voice cracked slightly. "When I came back in around 12:55, I found her, like that. You said you had to use your key to get back in. Mara nodded. Vanessa gives keys to her regular clients so we can come in if she's in the back room or something. The door automatically locks when it closes. And you didn't see or hear anything unusual while you were outside? No, nothing. The street was quiet. Just a few people walking by. Rivera made a note. Your call, do you mind if we verify the time on your phone records? Of course not, she said, perhaps a bit too quickly. Anything to help find who did this to Vanessa. Back at the station 2 hours later, Rivera was reviewing the preliminary evidence with his partner, Detective Sarah Chen. Her story's falling apart, Chen said, pointing to the records on her screen. No outgoing or incoming calls on Evan's phone during the time she claims to have stepped outside. And Vanessa's smartwatch data shows her heart rate spiked at 12:48 p.m. and flatlined at 12:50. Evan says she re-entered at 12:55, but by then, Vanessa had been dead for 5 minutes. Rivera frowned. What about security cameras? Anything from nearby businesses? The coffee shop next door has an exterior camera that shows their entrance and part of the sidewalk in front of the salon. Evans doesn't appear on it during the time she claims to be outside. So she never left. Doesn't look like it. And there's something else. Chen pulled up another file. We got a warrant for Vanessa's phone. Last night at 9:27 p.m., she left a voicemail for her friend Diane King. I have to talk to the police after Mara's appointment tomorrow. What I found out about Charleston, it's worse than we thought. Rivera leaned back in his chair, connecting the dots. Let's bring Evans in again. And track down this Diane King. I want to know what Vanessa found out about Charleston. Mara Evans sat rigid in the interrogation room, her earlier composure beginning to crack around the edges as Rivera laid out the inconsistencies in her story. No phone calls during the time you claim to have been outside, he said evenly. No appearance on security footage. And Vanessa's smartwatch shows she died while you were supposedly still in the salon. Mara's eyes darted to the door, then back to Rivera. I must have been mistaken about the timing. Ms. Evans, we also know that Vanessa was planning to speak to the police about something involving you and Charleston. Care to tell me what that might be? The color drained from Mara's face. I don't know what you mean. I think you do, Rivera pressed. 2 years ago in Charleston, a salon owner named Elaine Dorset disappeared. You worked for her as a receptionist. Shortly after her disappearance, you moved here and started a new life. That's just coincidence, Mara stammered. Is it? Because we've been in touch with Charleston PD. They're very interested to hear that you're connected to another salon-related incident. For a long moment, Mara was silent, her fingers twisting together on the table. Then, as if a dam had broken, words spilled out of her. We argued. Vanessa and I. She'd been talking to my ex-husband Michael. She found out about Elaine, about the voicemail Elaine left warning him about me. Vanessa was going to go to the police, ruin everything I'd built here. Her voice hardened. She had no right to interfere in my life like that. So you killed her? Rivera asked quietly. I just snapped, Mara whispered, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. 1 minute we were arguing, and the next. I grabbed the scissors. I didn't plan it. As Mara confessed, Detective Chen was across town, reviewing footage recovered from a hidden camera found behind the product shelf in Vanessa's salon, a camera the victim had installed after incidents of theft but had told no one about. The video confirmed what they already suspected, Mara had never left the salon. It showed their argument escalating, Mara forcing Vanessa into the shampoo chair, and then the fatal moment when she plunged the shears into Vanessa's neck. But it revealed something else too, something chilling. After the attack, as Vanessa's life ebbed away, Mara hadn't immediately called for help. Instead, she had stood before the mirror, staring at her reflection, whispering those haunting words, she knew. She knew everything. The most disturbing part came next, when Mara meticulously cleaned the scene, arranged Vanessa's body to suggest an attack from behind, and rehearsed her shocked discovery before making the 911 call. 3 months later, as winter settled over Lexington, Mara Evans stood trial for the murder of Vanessa Cole. Despite her lawyer's attempts to paint it as a crime of passion, arguing that Vanessa had provoked Mara by interfering in her personal life and threatening her fresh start, the jury wasn't swayed. The calculated nature of her actions after the murder, captured on video, spoke louder than any claims of emotional trauma or provocation. What sealed her fate was the revelation that came from Charleston. Remains identified as those of Elaine Dorset had been discovered buried behind her ex-husband's beach house. While Mara wasn't directly charged with that crime, at least not yet, the connection was impossible to ignore. She was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 30 years. In the aftermath, Vanessa's sister inherited the salon but couldn't bring herself to reopen it or sell the property. It stands empty now, a small memorial of flowers occasionally appearing on the doorstep from former clients. Through the windows, passers-by can see that everything remains as it was on that October day: the styling stations, the shampoo chair, the shelf of products. Some swear they sometimes glimpse movement inside, like someone walking behind the product shelf, just out of view. Detective Rivera occasionally drives past the salon on his way home. He's never admitted it to anyone, but once, late at night, he could have sworn he saw the lights flicker on briefly, illuminating a silhouette moving among the shadows. The case file remains on his desk, officially closed but somehow still open in his mind. There were too many unanswered questions. What exactly had happened in Charleston? Was Michael Evans somehow involved in both deaths? And what secrets had Vanessa discovered that were worth killing for? Sometimes, when the night is quiet and sleep eludes him, Rivera wonders if justice was truly served. Mara Evans is in prison, but the truth, the whole truth, remains locked away, hidden behind a shelf of expensive hair products, just out of view. And occasionally, when he passes the darkened windows of what was once Vanessa's salon, he can't shake the feeling that someone is watching him from inside, someone who knows all the answers to the questions that still haunt him. Someone who knows everything.